Today, we are focusing on the very big topic of how to get all your stuff in order now so that at the end of the fiscal year of 2016, you are well prepared for tax season.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Butler. I'm a retired IRS employee. My title at the IRS was a tax consultant / instructor. Tonight we will be talking about tax information for small business owners. What we will discuss is whether someone should incorporate or whether to consider themselves as a sole proprietor. Sole proprietor means that they're in business for themselves with no employees. We will talk about the pros and cons of both, what benefits are they're eligible for, and lastly, we will talk about business use of the home. When we talk about the LLC, when we're talking about the sole proprietor and a corporation, a lot of people, for whatever reasons, and it is a good reason, they will incorporate themselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for tax purposes, the Internal Revenue Service usually consider them as a sole proprietor. When we get to the corporation, we will tell you why people incorporate themselves. I will tell you that my son is a small business owner himself, and we elected to incorporate. He didn't have a problem with that because he knew with me being past IRS that I knew the consequences, and this is his second year. Even though he's a sole proprietor, we incorporated, and it's working out wonderfully for him. As a sole proprietor, you will report all of your income and expenses on a Schedule C or CEC. And then your profit or loss is transferred to a Form 1040. There's no special paperwork required other than the usual license, permit, and other regulatory requirements your state and locality imposes on any business. So if you consider yourself as a sole proprietor, there is no fancy paperwork that you have to complete. A lot of people have asked me when I mentioned that, well, I need an employee's identification number or EIN. When you are a sole proprietor, your Social Security number works just as well for business purposes. Okay, a corporation. A corporation is a company or group of people authorized to act as single entity and recognized as such in law. Corporations are given the right to exist by the state that issues their charter. In the state of Georgia, it is called an Article of Incorporation. Because of the legal structure of a corporation, there's a separation between business and personal assets. And like I mentioned earlier, that is true generally in most cases, as long as the Internal Revenue Service or some law enforcement agency can determine that the person in the corporation did not do something illegal. And what I mean, your corporation is set up, and I'm just going to say drug trafficking, and I'm just using that as an example, and someone may have a hair salon, and what they're doing, the hair salon is like a front for the drug money. Then the Internal Revenue Service and any other government agencies can come in and seize the personal assets because the funds was obtained illegally. So that are the situations that I'm talking about when they could seize your personal assets. But usually, and in most cases, the business assets are separated from the personals. Generally, a single member LLC is disregarded as an entity separate from its owners and reports its income and deductions on the owner's personal income tax return. Why is that important? A lot of LLCs, single members, complete the 1065. That is totally unnecessary. You're welcome to do that, but if you want to do that, but just keep in mind, because you are a single individual, sole proprietor, proprietor, you still have to complete that 1040 and the form, the Schedule C or the CEZ.
So, what about electing as an S corp?
Say that again?
As a single member LLC, if we choose to elect the S corp status,
Yes.
does that mean
Then
we're
you
treated
would,
as a
you would be
corporation?
considered as, if you're calling yourself a S corporation, then you would have to file the Form 1120S, which is for the sub-S corporation.
Okay.
I'm just making you aware that if you're single, you don't have to go through all of that stuff about corporations, but it's entirely up to you. And trust me, as long as there's money involved, as long as you pay what is due, the Internal Revenue Service does not have a problem with you. Any other questions before we move on? Yes.
Sorry, one. You go. Now go.
We're currently an LLC. Our accountant has suggested that we consider changing that to an S corp because she considers it more secure.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that, I don't see a problem with that. Like I said, and if the accountant is recommending that, what I would do, go to that publication 542, you
Yeah.
read over it first before you make a decision to see if that's something that you want to do. And you had a question over here?
Somewhat involved, but you can refer it to the end, just about losses. Like, if you're expecting to run losses, I mean, is there a
expect to
form?
run loss.
Really? I'm already in that. So, is it better to just be a sole proprietor, single member, or is it better to be a corporation?
Well, either way, if there are losses, if you're single, if you're a sole proprietor or you're a corporation, if you go over the limit for either, then you have the capabilities of carrying that over. The only thing I want to caution you, usually when we're talking about losses, when you're going into anything of more than 3 years with a loss, you may cause the Internal Revenue Service to actually look at you. Now, it may or may not happen, but just be aware that they may begin to take a look at the company or the sole proprietor. A lot of times the sole proprietors, if they have losses year after year, the Internal Revenue Service is going to do an audit to see if this is actually a hobby versus a business. Now, when I was told about this class, I was told that basically most of you are farmers. Is that true? Or because there's a Schedule F and then there's a Schedule C. Now, in your package tonight, I have the Schedule F. Schedule F and Schedule C basically works the same. What it is that you're reporting your gross income, you're taking out all of your allowable expenses, what you're entitled to, and then your net. With income from the Schedule F, if you're a farmer, or with a Schedule C, if you're a sole proprietor, both will entitle you for the Earned Income Credit. When you're completing the Schedule F, if you are sole proprietor, this rolls over to 1040, the same as the Schedule C or CEZ.
So this is filing as a sole proprietor, not a corporation?
Right.
Okay.
Now, her question was, this is following as a sole proprietor and not a corporation. If you were a corporation, you would still complete the Schedule F, but you would be completing the 1065 also. The profit or loss from farming, it tells you to attach this form to the 1040, a 1041, a 1065, or a 1065B.
QuickBooks anymore, I use Zero,
Okay.
and for me it's a lot easier, it's more streamlined. You can customize it to what reports you want to see. So I've got a dashboard so I can see sales and expenses, and I can do my checkbook on there, expenses, and it kind of learns what's what, so it makes it really streamlined. So I just match it up, and then the sales too makes it really easy. And I do have a bookkeeper and I do have an accountant too, so all the three of us work together to make sure it's done. And, they initially set it up, and then I'm trying to maintain it to save money because those guys are expensive. But like last year, I spent way too much money depending on them, and I'm realizing that I can do it. So I'm trying to be more of a manager and be more hands-on on those kind of things. Like last year, I just wanted to focus on my business and not the paperwork, but you know, there's always a trade-off. So.
Thank you.
Can you scan receipts into that software too?
Yeah, there's a mobile app for it, so I can take a picture of a receipt and it can be visible online. So it's
What's
pretty
it called
quick.
again, Rusty?
XERO, 0. It's just like a monthly subscription.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my son actually scans everything from his iPhone. I try not to get him, I've only had an iPhone for about 6 months now. So I'm just learning how to use that, but he uses it as a part of his business and he loves it.
Yeah, I like the convenience. There's other features, and you can invoice and do other stuff, but I just use it for the basic stuff.
Okay.
Over here.
We use QuickBooks. The ideal is that I do it quarterly, and then send an accountant's copy to our accountant, and she reviews it, lets me know about any issues. That doesn't usually happen. I'm usually doing them all around January, doing 9 months of receipts, because I'm good for the first part of the year, and then it falls apart. We don't scan anything, and I keep a 12-pocket file folder, put all my receipts in there, along with our bank statement and credit card statement. And then I manage a cash account within QuickBooks for cash transactions.
So far, I'm just saving receipts and keeping a written record. This is my first season in business, so taking notes.
Okay.
Well, this is not something I'm great at, because most of the time I just want to be creating art and not thinking about these things, but I do use Excel. I'm pretty proficient in Excel, and I try to keep a lot of my costing in Excel, but I also do all of my purchasing online, so I always have a record of PayPal, Etsy. I can always go back and see what I've spent, and then through Square I can see what I'm bringing in.
We use Wave. I never log in, so I really don't know a lot of what's going on with it. We keep receipts in like a file folder.
Now what is Wave?
Wave is what it's called.
It's like a tracking software.
Okay.
So, and most of our purchases are made online as well. So.
Okay. Right here?
I just returned to zero. I was familiar with it from other businesses, and I'm still in the process of setting up, but before that, and even right now, I'm using American Express. They have a receipt match program for the card, so if you have a business card with them, you can just snap a picture. It even allows you to turn on reminders if you suck at doing this like I do, so I just turn them on.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to hear from around the room. One of the best practices I can tell you I want to keep emphasizing is record keeping. That is the best practice for you. Record keeping, like I said, it helps you to complete your income tax return, and then also if you ever question about anything, you have your records for that, and all the programs that you mentioned probably are good.